Welcome back. Now, former President Jacob Zuma will know this week if he will be returning to prison. Correctional Services Commissioner Makgothi Thobale is expected to make a decision by Thursday. It follows the ConCourt's dismissal of a bid by the department to appeal a Supreme Court of Appeal ruling. Let's find out what Zuma's legal options are with legal expert Mpumelelo Zikalala. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us here on this South African morning. Now, the Department of Correctional Services is set to make this decision by Thursday. Let's just talk through what goes into legally making a decision of this nature.
Good morning to and also to your viewers. Basically, it's looking at what is the enabling legislation that allows you to take that decision. Remember, any decision which is taken by the commissioner must be lawful, it must be rational, it must be procedurally fair, and must definitely comply with the Correctional Services Act. And under that act, there are basically three options which are available to the commissioner. The first one is to say, I'm giving you, Mr. Zuma, temporary leave, I'm allowed to do that. Or secondly, we are going to release you under community supervision, or thirdly, we are going to release you under parole. But on the last two, it must be noted that it needs to go to a committee first before those particular decisions are taken. So it's not a decision which is taken by the commissioner alone. It needs to go to a certain committee. A committee would look at the submissions that had been made and then arrive at a conclusion or recommend either yay or nay to the commissioner in terms of allowing him to take a particular decision. If you don't do that, then you run the risk of doing what has been happening now, in which if there are any members of the public who are disgruntled about any decision that has been taken by the commissioner, they will take it to court and then say, Commissioner, you've done something which is wrong. Show us under which section did you derive those powers to release a person at the end of the day. And the act is very clear. When a person is being released or is being sent to prison, if they've been released erroneously, that particular part in which they've been released erroneously is not counted in it or is not factored in as part of the incarceration period. So it must be noted that whenever a decision is taken by the commissioner, it must be one which is compliant with the law, and the commissioner will have only the Correctional Services Act to look at to determine whether he's done something right or wrong.
Mr. Zikalala, I read that the department received various representation from relevant parties to make this decision. Just talk us through that process and what it entails and what it means ultimately.
I think the commissioner must have been complying with the procedural fairness part of it in terms of saying that the decision which is affecting you initially, you would be told it was a decision which was taken by the department and not by the former president. So whenever a decision is being reversed or there's a proposal to reverse that decision, you need to consult all the relevant parties and say to them, here's the decision which is going to affect you. Can I hear your views in terms of what has been stated? Hopefully, you are going to go to a legal practitioner or someone who's going to be able to advise you, look at what the applicable legislation actually states, and you'll be able to state the facts or the things in which you want me to consider in arriving at a decision whether you must be released or not. So that's the type of consultation or level of gathering the information in which the commissioner was doing. And in fact, he was doing something which is good and also in compliance with the Act. But at the end of the day, any decision that he takes must be compliant with the Correctional Services Act.
So going forward, what are the options legally for former President Jacob Zuma?
Because he has submitted his representation, if he's not released under any of the three that I've stated earlier, let's say the decision comes back during the week and says, no, we must go back to prison. You can go to court on an urgent basis and say, I want the court to make a determination on the period in which I served. Yes, I know what the Correctional Services Act actually states. However, I want to have my day in court in terms of stating the injustices in which I'm going to suffer. I want it to be considered that the period in which I was released under parole, medical parole, to be considered as the time in which I was detained. Truth be told, he was detained because he couldn't wake up in the morning and say, I want to go to Dubai on a holiday and come back in a few weeks' time, because he had to go through the Correctional Services Department's officials before he's able to move around Ghana. So it's on that basis in which maybe he can go to court and say to the court, please make a determination as to what ought to have happened in this case. If there's a provision within the Act that says so, I'm making an application to declare that particular provision unconstitutional because it's depriving of my rights to liberty, which have been accrued to me by the Constitution. So he does have the option of going to court if he finds an adverse decision or any other party in that matter that would say that the decision that's been made by the commissioner is not something which is compliant with the law.
And then just as a legal expert, what is your view with regards to the likelihood that the former president will then go back to prison? How are you seeing this play out?
I don't. There is an option which is available. For example, there's a section which allows for temporary leave to be granted to the president, and that's a decision which is solely taken by the commissioner. And part of it would be the reason of being able to reintegrate back into the community. Just remember, we can't take away from the fact that the former president at the time was being regarded as a person who was a detainee. And there must be certain type of reintegration into the community that must be done. There are certain community programs that must be done. There are certain things in which must be done in order to prepare him, in order to go back in the normal life in which he was living. There are tailor-specific or case-specific matters or factors that would have to be considered by the commissioner and also to the president. And the president will also have to make a submission in terms of saying, Commissioner, please consider the time in which I've been out, consider all the other external circumstances and factors that are there. I do not want to draw any inferences of any looting which was taking place in July. However, if you must take that into consideration too, just so you're able to make a decision which is correct. But most importantly, take into account that I'm of the view that my rights to liberty were infringed. And if you then extend or say that I must come back to a correctional services facility, we are basically meaning in practical terms I must spend another 2 months in addition to what the sentence that I was given by the court extra. So where is the fairness and the justice in that? Take that into consideration before you continue. And the commissioner will definitely say, on this basis, we are going to release on temporary leave. Any other options that are there, which is your community supervision and parole, are going to take too long because it still needs to go to a particular committee before the former president is released, unless if they're going to say, while the committee or the parole board is taking into account your submissions, you must remain where you are and not come back to prison.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Zikalala, for your insights and helping us understand what goes into making this decision and also helping us understand this case better. That was legal expert Mr. Mpumelelo Zikalala just talking to us about the Department of Correctional Services decision on whether former President Jacob Zuma will be going back to prison. Needs to be made by Thursday this coming week. The legal expert there just helping us unpack those details.